morning. This morning I'd like to introduce my next refinishing project. And what I have is, I have a Winchester Model 94. This is a 1965 version of the Model 94. And it has seen better days. And I love Winchesters and I love the 94. And so this is going to be a real challenge. And if you don't mind, I'm going to take you along with me on the challenge. You've seen the video. I put the video at the beginning of all the rest, so there's no point in really necessarily going through all that again. As I explained before, one of the first things I do, or the first thing I do when I get a gun that needs to be refinished, is I look at it. I do my research, found out that it was from 1965, and I try to look at some of the things that might be a problem when I'm refinishing, and some of the things that may actually be a positive. One of the things that's a positive, and I should know better, but in the 1970s, Winchester changed what their receivers, and one of the things that they did to change the receiver was they made it out of this weird metal, and the metal is like an alloy of several different metals put together, and it wouldn't corrode, and maybe that was part of it. And what they did was they put a thin coat of ferrous metal over the top of it so that they could glue it. I've done this myself once, and I'm not going to do it again, but when you clean it off, you take that layer off, and you're stuck with this metal that won't glue. So you have to figure a different way around it, but that's a whole different story. So what I did was, for this, I took a magnet, and you can see the magnet holds on. So it's from steel, so that's good. It's going to be able to be glued. There's going to be some pitting, obviously, but we'll try to minimize that by polishing some of it out and gluing it, and we'll see how it is. One of the saving things for this gun is that the action works great inside, and we'll see the parts when I take it apart. Inside's fine, at least from what I can tell from just the way the action works. So it's a gun that's still alive. It just needs a facelift. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get things set up and go to the next step for my restoration or my refinishing is to take it apart. But I think this is going to end up looking like a beautiful gun when I'm done. And there's a lot of potential here. And since I've become the rust buster, and I really enjoy bringing the gun back to life, this is going to be fun. All right, I'll be back. Okay, I'm back now. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take it apart, and as I take it apart, I'm going to look at each piece and get an idea of what it is that I need to do. Some of the things that I do before this is I explained before about these yogurt cups. These yogurt cups are great. I always have one of those, and that's for the small pieces, so I don't lose the small pieces. The other thing I have is a box, and I'll put the gun's name on the box itself, and this is where I put the bigger parts, so I don't lose them. I've learned about losing parts, so. Alright, so I've already taken the sling off. Sling, just easy to move around things. Things move around. So I'm going to put that in my box. And what I like to do, people do things differently about taking guns apart, but I like to, for the 94 especially, I like to gut it first. And then after that, I'll take the wood off. So to gut it first, you need to take off the finger lever. So the finger lever on the post 64 is held on by three things, but two things that you have to be concerned about. there's a screw here. See where that's holding out. And there's a pivot up here. There's a little pin that holds the finger lever onto the bolt itself, and that's what moves the bolt back and forth. Is that. So what I'm going to do is first I'm going to remove the so we'll screw, put that in there. Now you can see it inside there if you wanted to, but the way to get that that pin out is on the opposite side. There's a little hole, and with that little hole you stick something inside there and you push it out. You can use a wooden Q-tip, and there it is. There it is. That's what holds the finger lever onto the bolt. Now I'm going to remove this other screw. Okay, well, one of the points of having a gun that's this rusty is that sometimes the screws are very rusty. I don't want to muck it up. So what I'm going to have to do is prepare better for this, so that these things just come right off. So what I'm going to do in the meantime is I'm going to get some penetrating oil, my coil. As always. And I'm going to put a little bit of oil on it. And penetrating oil will go in and loosen up any of the rust and whatever that's. It doesn't usually take very long. So we'll put that on there. So then we're going to go out of order. We have to be flexible. So what I want to do is I'm going to take the finger lever off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the stock off in the back. The stock itself is held on by one screw right there. So I'm going to take that screw off. Like I said, I try to keep this as live as possible. So take the one screw off. Screw. The wood. The wood itself seems like it's in pretty good shape. I mean, there's no rot that I can see on it or anything like that, so that's a good thing. The butt plate's made out of metal, and it's held on by Phillips screwdrivers. I know a lot of people they take and they pre-loosen a lot of this stuff, and dang it. All right, that's gonna have to be loosened again. I'm gonna have to redo this video. Okay, after about 5 more hours of wrestling with rusty screws and swimming in a sea of penetrating oil, I finally have disassembled the gun, and because I wanted to show it being disassembled, I reassembled it again, and so it'll be easier to disassemble. Plus, the penetrating oil actually works on rust, so there's less rust than there was. Anyway, so we're going to go back to where we were. I'm going to remove that pivot pin for the this involved everything from power tools and torches, and I mean, it was pretty involved to get all this stuff off. I'm actually pretty happy because I really only messed with one screw, and I didn't really mess with it. It sheared the head sheared off, and so I had really nothing to do with that one. Okay, there's the little pin back up. Put that in the container. So now we're going to take the finger lever off, and the way to do that is there's a screw right up here. A lot easier this time. The screw. Now this is coming off. There it is. Okay, so what you've got here is this is your finger lever. This is where the pin goes that connects the lever to the bolt, and then this connects to the underside of the receiver. So that's how that works, and that's on the back here. What I was wrestling with is they call this the locking bolt, and the reason that is there is when you pull back on your finger lever, it comes down, and then when you push back in, it pushes it up, and it comes between. There it is, right there. It comes and it locks your bolt in place, so that way there, so when you fire it, it locks it, and it has a. Well, we'll see when we take it out, but it locks the bolt in place for when you get ready to fire it. So there you go. The next thing we're going to take off is carrier. This is the carrier here, and the way that what the carrier does is, by design, it sits up underneath the receiver. When you pull the handle back, what happens is the a round has come in from the magazine. So when you pull the lever back, it tilts up like this, and it pushes so that the bolt can come across and grab the round and push it into the chamber. So it's a carrier. It carries the round up into it. So that's an important part. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take off the wood again. The wood comes off. That's the bolt there. It let's see it or not. It the head sheared off the bolt. So when the head sheared off, what I had to do was I had to get the rest of the screw out of the receiver. I mean, out of the buttstock. So what I did was I drilled a couple of other holes and reached in and pulled the rest of the screw
I'll fill it full of wood filler, drill another hole, and it'll be fine. Okay, here's your spring. This is the spring for your hammer. So what happens is when you pull back on your hammer, you see the spring goes down. When you pull on the trigger, the spring comes back up. Now, anybody that's fired a 94 knows about how you have the finger lever acts as a safety. It has to have it shut in order for it to fire. And the reason for that is, let's see if we can, well, first we'll take the hammer out. Then we'll look at the tang. I always like that name, the tang. Seems kind of off color, but it's the lower tang. Man, it's still okay. Yeah, you wouldn't know, it wasn't very pretty getting this gun apart, but there's a lot of rust and it's an older gun, so the hammer screw. Here comes your hammer. This part right here hooks up against the spring, and that's what causes the spring to work. So as I was saying, what you got is your trigger, and you can see it here. Let me see if I can get. And you see it's hitting this little piece of metal right here, so that when you pull your handle back, it pushes on this little knob, which causes that little piece of metal to go, and your trigger can. I mean, it's that simple. It's these little springs inside here are what operate that, but it's that simple. And there's your main spring and your trigger. This is your locking block and locking bolt. I'm sorry, and this is the side that's towards the hammer, and it's got this little doodad here that when it hits there, it hits the back of the firing pin and causes it to shoot. It has to have that there because, well, if this was a solid piece of metal locking in the bolt, well, then we wouldn't be able to fire anything. And it attaches to that part of the finger lever mechanism that makes it go up and down so that it can work. And then here's your bolt. On the post 64 bolts, the bolt is held in by, the firing pin is held in by that little rod, that little pin that I showed you, so that when it's out, your firing pin will come loose. In the pre-64 modes, there's a little pin that holds the firing pin in, so that doesn't happen. So, but it's held in, like I said, by that little pivot type pin that they have. So what we got is the magazine. The magazine is held on by a little screw right here. When you take this screw off, let me get a small screwdriver. When you take the screw off, you want to make sure you put your finger on the top, because as soon as this is released, there's a spring in there and it'll come flying out. And it's happened probably to everybody at one time or another. This screw is also, it goes all the way through the magazine itself. See, it's fairly long, and it's got a little nipple thing on the end, and it goes through and it connects to a hole inside the barrel, on the end of the barrel, to help keep things in alignment. So here we go. Here's the spring. And Now what we got to do is do the bands, which I guess we're way over time here, so we'll do this real quick. Okay. Anyway, the magazine is nothing more than a tube. And this tube, it's nothing more than a tube. And it also it goes down through here. There's a small screw on here. I guess I could have been better prepared for today's little first attempt at this. But anyway, like I said, we're way over time. And if you can imagine, not too bad for a guy with Parkinson's, I guess. All right, I'm having problems now with the small screws because I'm trying to rush. There we go. Okay, band comes off. There's your wood, the band. This one, he's got a little bracket here for a swivel, so we can't just slide it out like we normally would. We have to mess with it and get it out. But anyway, there's your magazine. It's just a tube with a spring in it. Follower goes inside the magazine, and your bands. That's it. I'm not going to take I will take it off when I do the barrel. I'm not going to take that off right now. And also the little door comes off. There's a screw right there that the little door comes off. But that's it. That's the disassembly of the 94. At least enough for my for what I need for right now. I'm going to take it and I'm going to first work on the wood. The wood always takes the longest, so what I'm going to do is take the wood and strip it down and start working on making that look good. Excuse me, and then start working on the rest of it. And I'll do little segments on like the bolt, which might be a good one to do, the 94 bolt. And then when we put it back together again, probably put it back together in segments so it won't be a 30-minute video. So anyway, all right. Well, thank you for watching and thanks for your patience. And if you heard any cussing or whatever, because because this gun was a tough one to take apart. All right. Thank you.